Good evening. This is CTV News. I'm Patricia Vallone. A judge today orders that the teen suspect accused of fatally shooting Duval High School student Jada Medrano Moore will be held without bond. The 17-year-old suspect, a Charles Flowers High School student, faces murder, assault, and weapons charges. During a bond hearing, a judge ordered that the suspect be held at the Prince George's County Detention Center. Last Monday, Moore was walking home from school when a dispute broke out between two groups. Police say that when she stepped in to stop the altercation, she was shot.
It was no accident that the gun was there. That was an intentional act. Someone intentionally brought a gun to where they knew a dispute was going to happen. And so when you bring a weapon to a dispute, to argue that it was an accident is, I think, it's hard to believe, let me say that.
What happened was terrible, should never have happened. And I hope that the message goes forth, as I said to you earlier, that for those professionals and those parents and others who will be out here listening, we need to get to those young ones in our schools before the horse bolts the barn.
A preliminary hearing for the still unidentified teen suspect has been set for October 16th. Well, healthcare workers have voted to approve a strike at Kaiser Permanente. Some 3,800 workers in Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. are threatening to walk off the job by the end of the month if no agreement is reached. Members of OPEIU Local 2, which includes emergency department technicians, pharmacists, and optometrists, say the company engages in unfair labor practices. The union also accuses Kaiser of maintaining unsafe staffing levels, which could put patient health at risk. Some 65,000 Kaiser Permanente workers in 4 western states recently voted to authorize a strike. Well, County Executive Angela Alsobrooks continues to rack up big endorsements in her run for a U.S. Senate seat. The latest is from Congressman Glenn Ivey, who officially endorsed the Alsobrooks campaign this morning at its Largo office. Ivey cited her tireless advocacy on behalf of Marylanders.
We've had a chance to work together on federal efforts to make sure we're moving Prince George's County in the right direction. And I know sometimes it's a challenge. You know, you're working at the county level, or you're focused on county and state efforts, and sometimes you overlook what could be done with the federal government to make sure that all 3 levels are working together to make Prince George's County be all that it can be. But she never missed that.
And Alsobrooks is running to replace the seat currently occupied by Ben Cardin, who is not running for re-election. Well, county officials celebrate the opening of 5 of the county's 6 newest schools with a ribbon cutting in Hyattsville this morning. County leaders and elected officials gathered at Hyattsville Middle School to commemorate the occasion, which included a musical performance. All of these new schools were constructed through the Blueprint Schools initiative.
We can all be proud of what's been done here. It took a lot of work with a lot of different people to ensure that it happened. This building should be, quite frankly, the gold standard for what it is to create a template for innovation and collaboration.
And as much as we have anticipated this day, we are so happy because our community has been even more excited to see it to come. Prince Georgians have always been proud of our children, and we have pledged together that we will do everything we can to support them.
And ribbon cuttings are scheduled this week for Drew Freeman Middle School in Suitland, Sonia Sotomayor Middle School in Adelphi, Kenmore Middle School in Landover, and Walker Mill Middle School in Capitol Heights. The 6th school, Colin L. Powell K-8 Academy, is scheduled to open later this fall. Well, state revenue meets previous forecasts, remaining stable but experiencing some challenges. Maryland Comptroller Brooke Learman released the state's closeout report for FY 2023, showing a small surplus of $555 million. The report shows that national inflation is disproportionately affecting low to moderate income residents. Many families and small businesses are still adjusting to the economic impact of COVID and rising costs, including rent, mortgages, and financing new vehicles. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Patricia Vallone. We'll be back in just a moment.
They're off from school, but not really home. Images and videos. Social media, fine-tuned to suck them in and steal them away. Alone, you can't stop it. Together, we will. Join us.
Well, Montgomery County fire investigators are looking into at least a half dozen suspicious fires that occurred on Sunday morning in Gaithersburg. The first occurred at the Holbrook Center across from Gaithersburg High School in the early morning hours. A fire was also reported at La Frontera restaurant on Russell Avenue about 3 a.m. Anyone with information on these incidents is asked to call the arson tip line at 240-777-2263. The Maryland Healthcare for All Coalition is urging the General Assembly to pass legislation to expand the authority of the Maryland Prescription Drug Affordability Board when it reconvenes in January. Currently, the panel only has the authority to act on drug costs for state and local government employees. The group wants to expand that power so all Marylanders can benefit.
Marylanders have hard trouble affording their drugs. Drugs don't work if people can't afford them. So we're thrilled that this board, under the leadership of former Health Secretary Van Mitchell, is making progress to make high-cost drugs more affordable for state and local governments. But we want to, in 2024, urge the General Assembly to expand its authority to be able to make high-cost drugs more affordable for all of us. We conducted polling showing that Marylanders overwhelmingly support this kind of authority because 45% of Marylanders have had a hard time affording their critical prescription drugs. They are way too expensive. Drugs don't work if people can't afford them.
And the coalition is hosting a drug pricing webinar tonight featuring Senator Chris Van Hollen, Delegate Joseline Pena-Melnick, and others. The webinar starts at 6 p.m. For more information, you can visit healthcareforall.com. A recent report from Chesapeake Bay scientists says long-standing water quality goals are likely unattainable. Rising temperatures threaten to permanently alter habitats in the estuary and its tributaries in ways that are difficult to foresee. The Bay Journal reports that the future Chesapeake will be warmer with higher water levels and fewer tidal wetlands.
There are some areas in which our goals are on track. We have seen improvements in wastewater treatment plants and facilities upgrades there, which have reduced greatly the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus pollution that's entering the Chesapeake Bay from that sector. But it's these other areas where we're seeing that move in the wrong direction, including the loss of our tree canopy, the increase of impervious surface acres, the implementation of streamside buffers and wetlands. We are falling short in some of these other categories.
And the Reaching 2025 committee, which outlines the Bay's path for the next 2 years, says 17 of 31 outcomes are on track or have been achieved. But 12 water quality goals are far off track, including reducing nutrient pollution, creating wetlands, and restoring underwater grasses in the Bay. Well, the summer of 2023 was Earth's hottest since global record keeping began in 1880. That's according to an analysis by scientists at NASA's Goddard Institute of Space Studies. The months of June, July, and August combined were 0.41 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than any other summer. August alone was 2.2 degrees warmer than average. Officials say that the record heat likely contributed to severe rainfall in Italy, Greece, and Central Europe. We spoke with NASA climate scientist Dr. Peter Jacobs about why this summer was so hot.
This summer was the hottest summer on record, basically because of human activities, mainly the burning of fossil fuels, emitting greenhouse gases. It's warming the climate, it's warming the planet, and for the past few years, we've had sort of a natural counterbalance to that with something called a La Nina, which can keep things a little bit cooler than they would otherwise. When we lose that and it switches from a La Nina to an El Nino, you get the sort of the full force of that human-driven warming, and then maybe even a little bit of extra from an El Nino. But the number one answer is really it's burning fossil fuels and all the other things that human activities are doing to warm the climate.
And the new record comes as exceptional heat swept across much of the world, worsening deadly wildfires in Canada and Hawaii. And coming up later on the news, a winning home opener for the Bowie State Bulldogs. Stay with us.
What's going on, sports fans? I'm here at Bulldog Stadium where the Bowie State football team played their first home game of the season against Shaw University. I'll have highlights and more on the game coming up in a little while. Stay right there.
Operation Homefront, it just opened up so many possibilities. It took us from a hopeless situation, and now we're homeowners. We have a savings account. It's completely changed the way our life is. Our household is so much happier.
Well, the winners of the Maryland Natural Resources Photo Contest have been announced. Drum roll, please. Dallin Johnson of Huntingtown has won the grand prize for his photo of a gray tree frog. The grand prize package this year includes $500 along with the Maryland State Park and Trail Passport, free entry into next year's contest, and 5 copies of the 2023 calendar with the winning image displayed on the cover. Congratulations to all the winners of the 20th annual contest. Some beautiful shots. In sports news tonight, it was home sweet home for the Bowie State Bulldogs this weekend. As Simon Buggs reports, the Bulldogs football team was victorious in its home opener.
All right, everyone, it's time for your Monday sports page. The Bowie State football team was in action this past Saturday, taking the field against Shaw University in their first home game of the season. The Bulldogs played very well during the game and had tons of highlights. Starting with some first quarter action, Bulldogs DB Keith Williams made a great play, recovering a fumble on 3rd down to give the Bulldogs the ball back. Fast forward to the second quarter, the Bulldogs defense continued to make plays such as this big hit by linebacker Corey Shell on the Bears' first down in the beginning of the second quarter. Switching to the second half, the Bulldogs offense came alive. The Bulldogs were able to cap off a great drive by a touchdown pass that was caught by receiver James McNeil III in the third quarter to give the Bulldogs a 14-7 lead. Fast forward to the fourth quarter, and Bowie was able to get into the end zone again thanks to another pass caught by McNeil that allowed the Bulldogs to go up 21-7. And in the end, the Bulldogs sent their fans home happy, taking down Shaw University 21-7. I caught up with head coach Kyle Jackson after the game, and I asked how it felt being in front of the home crowd for the first time this season, and this is what he had to say.
It's always good to be home, man. You know, it's a different feeling, especially after going on the road for 2 weeks, getting an opportunity to come back and see familiar faces. It's always a good feeling, man. Bulldog Nation always show up for us, so it's a pleasure to be back here to represent this illustrious university.
Coach Jackson also gave credit to the team's great defense that was played during the game.
Our defense is tenacious. You know, we're aggressive. The way Coach Williams calls it, he's aggressive. You know, he's kind of want to dictate the game instead of sitting back and let our offense dictate. So, as you can see, like we got after them guys heavy and then sat back and played coverage, you know, and let our defensive backs do what they do.
Bowie will take the field next Saturday, matching up against St. Augustine's University at 1 o'clock. And that is your Monday sports page. Simon Buggs, CTV Sports.
And in other sports news tonight, the Commanders pick up a big win on the road and the Orioles clinch a postseason berth. The Washington Commanders got a stellar performance from quarterback Sam Howell in a 35-33 victory over the Denver Broncos on Sunday. Howell completed 27 of 39 passes for 299 yards and a pair of touchdown passes. The undefeated Commanders rallied from an 18-point deficit and held on despite a Broncos Hail Mary touchdown at the end. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Orioles are back in the postseason after beating Tampa Bay 5-4 in 11 innings. It's the first postseason berth for the Birds since 2016, and they are in Houston tonight to take on the Astros. And that is CTV News for now. I'm Patricia Malone. Have a great night.